Gail Arno, Director of Care Management for Elder Care Management, began her career in aging services in 1998, serving as a family consultant for a local placement agency. She actively educated and guided a generation of seniors and their families to resources and information available throughout the greater Sacramento region. In 2010, she brought her experience and expertise to the team at Elder Care Management, providing service and oversight in the growing field of geriatric care management. In 2020, Gail assumed the role of Director of Care Management for ECM, leading the exceptional team of established care managers. Gail received a Bachelor of Science in History from UCLA, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from CSU Northridge. She completed a graduate certification program in gerontology through CSU Sacramento, where she concurrently completed a 6-class case management course certification. She is a California Residential Care Facilities for the Elderly, or RCFE, certified administrator, and is a state-approved instructor for RCFE administrators certification courses. Additionally, she's a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association and a board member for Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center. Gail is a certified care manager through the National Academy of Certified Care Managers and a member of the Aging Life Care Association. Gail offers invaluable wisdom on the subject of aging, and with that, we will turn the presentation over to Gail Arno. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Sure appreciate that introduction, and sure appreciate each and every one of you for coming in and sitting in and listening to our thoughts on supporting caregivers out there in the real world. And I am a caregiver myself. I will admit that right from the get-go. I cared for my parents and my in-laws. When we lost them a few years ago, my caregiving experience turned toward my daughter, who lives with me, who requires care. So I often give this presentation, and it always reminds me that I should heed the advice of this presentation, because it's important to all of us in so many ways. So thank you all for taking the time, taking out of your day and listening to some of our thoughts on how to support you and how to validate you. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the important facts regarding caregiving, and there's some financial facts, there's some emotional facts, there's some statistics, but there's also so many feelings that go along with the caregiving role as it might be. I want to talk a little bit about understanding the impact being a caregiver has on each individual, and how we are human, and asking for help is not a sign of weakness. I believe it's an actual sign of strength. So we're going to talk about, what role we play in that and how we can get that help that we might need. And then also look at some of the signs of stress and caregiver burnout. It's a very real category, and it shouldn't be dismissed by any stretch of the imagination. It should be identified and supported and given that opportunity to take a breath and then come back and definitely be ready to face the music, as they might say. And then we're going to talk about how to support your well-being, caregivers' well-being, your resilience, some tips on how to get yourself feeling very comfortable and very much at ease and very supported in your own way. So we'll focus on these subjects and have some good discussion on the steps that you might take to be the best caregiver you can be. And there's no right or wrong answers here. It's all about the commitment that you're willing to take on, but also the care of your own being that's really important as well. So who is a caregiver? And I think we've gathered a kind of 5 snippets here that encapsulate really pretty much everyone on this planet. We've got the businessman who's, in the back of his mind or her mind, the business person trying to balance business, work, family, parents, sandwich, etc. Not easy in a busy lifestyle that we're in the midst of. We have the generational approach. We see a granddaughter there in the bottom right-hand or left-hand corner, granddaughter and maybe a grandfather, and they're crossing that divide of technology and enjoying one another. We see mom, right next to that, dealing in that sandwich generation, just trying to find her way, support that family unit that she has created, but also be supportive to that family unit of origin. And we see a couple in the middle, top row there. And one of the things I think that is the toughest role that we play is caregiving for a couple that may still be a unit, but nobody ages in the same trajectory as the next person. So even though we couple for 50, 60, and 70 years, we don't all age in a similar path. And so how do you balance two paths? So we'll talk a little bit about that and how to keep people happy and yourself content as well, and supported. And then again, we have our, the gal on the computer, she's balancing the technology of caregiving, the fight of caregiving, the balance of caregiving, how much can be done through technology, how much can be done through hands-on care, how thin can we spread ourselves, where do we go from here? So it's a myriad of different faces we see as a caregiver, no one simple designation or definition of that caregiver as it might be, all very worthy. So here's a couple of the hard, cold facts, and I think these are important just to get a sense of. You can see in the first bullet point there, 34.2 million Americans are providing unpaid care to an adult who is over 50 years of age in the past 12 months. So you're giving up time, you're readdressing schedules, you're putting yourself on the back burner to provide that uncompensated care to an adult over 50 years old because you love and adore and feel committed to those individuals. Wonderful of you to do that, but it's done at a cost, not only an hourly cost attached to your efforts, but at what cost to you as a human. Look at the 16.1 million hours provided unpaid care for someone with Alzheimer's or dementia. So many of us are contending with those cognitive issues as well as the physical issues. Sometimes the physical issues are the last things to go. And so the cognitive issues, the dementias, the Alzheimer's, the issues that make you have to think on your feet a little bit better and a little harder are the ones that we're challenged with. I would contend that in my world, as I care for my daughter, she's mostly cognitively there. It's more of a physical concern. I can rationalize, I can justify, I can talk, I can explain. When you can't give those explanations and have them sink in and have them make a difference, again, more hours are devoted to the care and the devotion of those with Alzheimer's and dementia as we go through this caregiving role. Americans provided 18.5 billion, that's a B, hours of care valued at about $234 billion as well. So we're not acknowledged financially and sometimes not acknowledged emotionally. And we want to rectify all of that the best way we can. And today we're going to talk about how you can rectify that emotionally as it might be. 34% of the caregivers are over the age of 65, and the bulk of them, 2/3, are women. This responsibility tends to fall in our lap as females. I don't think we're any better at it than our male counterpart, but it tends to fall in our lap. And again, caregivers are over that age of 65, and I'm in my 60s, and I know I'm not 25 anymore. Boy, I sure feel it. So I do okay, but boy, I am certain that I am not the 25-year-old I used to be. So definitely an impact on those individuals. And one full quarter of our caregivers are sandwich generation. They're providing care for an older adult and a child under the age of 18. So they're getting them off to school, they're getting them situated, they're rushing over to mom and dad's house, providing the care, maybe going on to a job, and then rushing back to pick up the children and contend with the next step. So challenging, to say the least. So certainly encourage everybody to understand these statistics are real, and they are the facts that back up what we're going to talk about today. So the financial impact, oh boy, among working caregivers caring for a family member or a friend, almost 70% of them report that they must rearrange their schedule. They may actually have to take a decrease in hours, and that may have a hit on their income, as it might be. And remember, we go back to how much was unpaid caregiving. They may have to take an unpaid leave in order to meet those responsibilities as a caregiver. So this has a huge impact. 70% have to rearrange, adjust, take maybe exhaust a paid leave and then take an unpaid leave, and now in their goal and their objective to provide those caregiving responsibilities. I think that's a huge financial impact that many families face day in and day out. Comes from a great source, the Family Caregiver Alliance. Really something to chew on as you think about what toll and what percentage of your life is being eaten up by these additional responsibilities that you covet so dearly. Well done, you. So here are some overriding, just general ideas of facts and figures. I think it's really important. We feel strongly, actually, that it's really important that you have an understanding of what you're up against in regards to, what do things really cost? Who's going to really cover what? How can I get some financial assistance, or who pays for what if we are working off of private funding? And that's primarily in the state of California anyway. Privately, the coverage and the support mechanisms to assist with caregiving, particularly in the senior community, is primarily private pay. So you can see as an example in the different levels that we show here, from nursing home through to adult day programs, some of the general costs. You can see, worst case scenario, looking from this slide, is a nursing home in a private room. It's about $13,600 a month. That's a heavy price point for many people to carry, and not much less expensive if you're going to share a room. In the assisted living, I think that $5,400, price point might be a pleasantly low price point. We see that just begin from about $5,400 up. Our in-home care, this is where I think, most everybody says, oh, it's okay, I'll just stay home. That'll solve all the problems. Well, it doesn't actually solve all the problems. As you can see, in-home care, our example here is a simple amount of 4 hours per day, 7 days a week. The general going average price is about $30 an hour. That's $3,750 in a month, and that's just 4 of the 24 hours a day that there are needs that might present themselves. So this too can be an expensive route if you increase those hours and stick with those days. And then our adult day program, these are the settings where an individual can go and enjoy others of their same ilk and of their same need, and have some companionship. But here we have, a price of $1,900, which just reflects 21 days in a month. And that may be great respite, but is it something that you can afford as well? The bulk of all these costs fall into the realm of private pay. We have a few programs that may support our seniors financially, but for the bulk of things, you'll either see that private pay or that long-term care insurance. So getting yourself familiarized with what costs you are up against, what's going to bring you the respite, the relaxation, and your loved one, the coverage and the need, the care level need that they might have, what is going to be reasonable and accurate for you. I think it's so very important to have a general broad understanding of which each and every category is, what they essentially look like cost-wise, and where does your loved one fit in this picture. So again, better to educate and have a bigger perspective on this than not. So please, and if you have questions regarding this screen or further detailed questions, this is kind of my strength, so I'll be very happy to answer those questions anywhere along the line if they do present themselves. But just a good overview for you as it might be. So again, a little bit more on the impact of our caregivers. Many caregivers of older people are themselves growing older. So again, I'm a perfect example of those caring. I am aging as I watch my daughter age as well, just a scotch ahead of her. But we are both doing nothing but going through that aging experience. Here's a kind of a sobering one, though. Again, of those caring, for someone age 65 plus, the average age of that caregiver is 63 years of age. And furthermore, and this is the line that frightens me the most, is that 1/3 of these 63-year plus caregivers are either in fair to poor health themselves. And we see this day in and day out. We see, I'll put myself on the back burner so that my loved one can get everything they need. This is probably the worst thing we can do. It's so very, very important to put ourselves not ahead of those that we're caring for, but at least on an equal plane as those we're caring for. And this is where I fall down, and I am pretty bad at times. I have a daughter who has great needs, and we tend to focus on her needs. And then I have an incidental issue that arises, and I tend to be the one who says, oh, I'll get to that next week. We have to get to that right away to stay in good health ourselves so that we can help the ones that we love. Yeah, I think we see, this is a very simple adage, but I think this is a very, very, very viable visual that you all can probably relate to, if not all, many. We get on a plane, and what is the flight attendant and or pilot tell us? Put your oxygen mask on before the one you're caring for or you're responsible to. If I'm well, then I can assure that I am there 100% to help my loved one be strong and get through their experiences. The second bullet point there, 70% of working caregivers suffer work-related difficulties due to their dual caregiving roles. And this again goes back to adjustments in time, adjustments in volume of work, maybe not taking a promotion that you just felt, oh, I take the promotion and I'll have more responsibility and I'll have less time to give to my loved one. So we take, work-related difficulties, we put them aside, and again, we bite the bullet on that one, and yet we get back to those caregiving responsibilities. It's noble and laudable, but is that really, on a good day, wouldn't your loved ones look at you and say, boy, I wanted more for you. I want you to do all that you can do. The final bullet point on this one is, again, another sobering comment. Caring for a person with dementia is reported to impact the caregiver's immune system. So that's our immune system for up to 3 years after their caregiving experience ends. So it therefore increases their chance of developing some sort of chronic illness in the experience that they've had with their loved one. 3 years, that impact, that you're still feeling the byproduct of that commitment that you've made, all the more reason to take care of yourselves as well, and realize the good of one does not outweigh the good of many. You have to find the balancing act and bring it all to the table so that you're protected as best you can. Give yourself some grace there. I think that's really, really important and really critical to successful caregiving. So the reality, here's my final scary thought, and we'll talk in a more positive tone going forward. Although this tone has been very concerning, it's really critical and important that you have an understanding of what impact this world of caregiving has on individuals. So take a look at the reality that we state here. And again, great source here, very viable, very legitimate source. So studies reveal that when someone is caregiving for a spouse, a partner, a mate, and they are under stress, the caregiver themselves has a risk of dying that is actually 63% higher than those of similar age who are not care providers. So I have a greater possibility of illness or death than my neighbor, who is caring only for herself, not worrying about anyone in her world, and managing along. It's the combination of stress, the physical demands of caregiving that may place you at this risk for some significant health issues. So again, I say this constantly to my couples when we run across a pair that we often talk to the primary caregiver. They're very rarely a roles split 50-50. And we will give them this sobering statistic. And I think most of my caregivers say, well, I'm going to soldier on. Well done you. But what I really like is when family members hear that and realize we've got to step in and put a safety net around both of them, not just one, because again, we tend to lose the one caring for the care recipient before the one that we're actually focused on. So this is a very legitimate statement here. If you get nothing out of today, please take this home and chew on it a little bit, and maybe redirect your efforts a little bit to include your needs equally to that one that you're caring for. We can't stress that enough. So what are some of the signs of stress and caregiver burnout? You can become very easily angered with the person you are caring for, and occasionally you take it out on them. I'm going to tell you that this is very normal and it's very human, and it hurts. It hurts you probably more than it hurts the one that you might briefly lash out at. Again, I'm certainly, I fall victim to this occasionally. My daughter and I have struck a rule. We have an agreement. After 9 p.m., I'm of no value. I can't make heavy decisions. I can't have heavy discussions. And so she agrees not to bother me after 9 p.m. And I agree not to bother her before 8 a.m. because she's not a morning person and her disease process doesn't allow her to be a morning person. So, I don't want to become angry and lash out at her. And so I do a better job if I recognize I'm tired, I can't do this. Can we table this for the morning when we're both feeling a little fresher and a little more able to rationally discuss this? So I know when I'm lashing out that I'm probably have hit a bit of that burnout and a bit of that stress. You may experience some weight gain, some weight loss. It may be recent. This is how you cope. You either potentially just don't simply have time to eat, or you are not comfortable eating, or this is all you can do is to get things into your mouth so that you can be satiated and move on to making sure that you're available to your charge. I want you to note your weight losses or gains and just know that they could be a reflection of some stress and some burnout. You may have some ongoing feelings of some doom, despair, some negativity. These are so very normal. They don't feel good. They shouldn't be chronic. They should be intermittent. They are allowed to be, but if they are going to be present, we surely hope them to be intermittent and not the primary percentage of your day. This is tough. This is difficult. There may be no comfortable outcome of this disease process that you're facing with your loved one. But having these ongoing, never-ending feelings of doom, despair, or negativity really need to be addressed, and they speak to, I fear I need a break. I need a break. Crying for no reason over some minor issue. Again, you need to know your audience and know who does what. I growing up was referred to in my family as the fastest here in the West. I often tell people when it's time to place me, I will probably cry all the time because I cry at commercials. I cry at good books. I cry at tender moments. So that's my nature. But if that is not your nature, then you are crying for no reason. It may be an indication that I need that break. I need to regroup, come back even stronger, even better, or at least at my baseline so I can help you. And then watch our sleep, lack of sleep, any concerns regarding chronic insomnia, too much sleep, am I sleeping it away because I don't want to face it, etc. So again, watch that sleep. It's critical. Restorative, rejuvenating sleep makes us able to come back and face the charge and the responsibility that we have. I notice that if I have to do an all-night event or well past the normal, my normal sleeping hours, I'm not as fresh the next morning. I don't feel as good. So again, that sleep issue can be an indicator there that there are some concerns. So I would caution you to know what your trigger or what your signs of stress or burnout might be. A few more, you may feel, again, a bit isolated. I think caregiving can be a very isolating experience, particularly as we've gone through COVID. We were really shut down and we were really withdrawn from all sorts of external stimuli and support mechanisms as it might be. I think we've all enjoyed this medium of the computer, but it doesn't always fill the bill in regard to, that socialization, that interaction, that actual physical touch. So watch that isolation and make sure that it isn't part of what you are daily experiencing. Again, we talked a bit about sleep deprivation. Watch your inactivity. Are you less than interested when you used to be so interested to get up and just walk those dogs for a brief period of time? Maybe you're just inactive because leaving the home and disconnecting from the one you're caring for lends you to more work when you get back. I would suggest we don't have a good safety net and support mechanism for you at that point. We need to find good support mechanisms to support you so you can get back to that activity. A little bit of fresh air. I don't think we'll find that outside today, but a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of natural vitamin D through sunshine really may turn the tables in regards to signs of stress or burnout that you might be experiencing. Poor eating habits. Again, overeating, overindulging, underindulging. We need to keep good nutritional habits in front of us. We'll be stronger, better, and more capable if that's the case. You may notice some more aches and pains. Everything seems like a chore. So it can be difficult, definitely. So we want to be able to stay with those exercise, those outdoor plans, getting some good nutrition to offset any aches or pains that we might experience. Exercise can really bring out the endorphins and make us feel as if everything is doable again. So exercise, not to any great extreme. You don't have time to put in a 4-hour workout, but just even getting those legs a walking and that body moving can be very beneficial. Watch the fatigue, very, very challenging. Again, we may feel tired, maybe exhausted by things. That's real because you're not sleeping, you're not eating well. So the fatigue can be a very real byproduct of stress and burnout. Again, this would be my second nugget that I want you to walk away with, and that is to make sure that you're caring for your own needs as well. It is critical to just get the A-OK from your physicians that you are functioning, that you are managing, that your medications should be you be taking any are in place, and that you are not failing to care for your own personal needs. And then ultimately any additional illness that you might be experiencing. Maybe you're getting every cold known to mankind because you haven't been sleeping, because your eating habits are poor, your defenses are down. So watch the frequency of any illnesses that might come your way as you caregive, and realize it's probably your sign to get yourself as cared for as possible, because you too are critical in this equation, most critical. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I do think finding balance is the toughest thing we'll do, but particularly that dance between guilt and resentment. I want to do this. I really want to do this, or I don't want to do this. When did I get assigned this? Why did I get assigned this? Boy, last week we phoned a client's power of attorney here at our office. He was the medical power of attorney, and the document was drawn in 2008. And he really, after hemming and hawing quite a bit, said, I don't want to be the power of attorney. I don't want this responsibility. but I guess I'll take it. And so we heard a lot of guilt and we heard a lot of resentment, but we also heard some anxiety along with that. He had to rectify where his role was. But that dance between guilt and resentment can be a dicey dance. And you've got to find the balance and you've got to speak up. If you don't ask, you don't get. So make those arrangements accordingly and speak up as to what you're comfortable with. So some personal awareness, and this again is another soapbox of mine that I'm just really honored to speak to. Caregivers at times have verbalized to me that they feel they're being selfish for putting their own needs first. And I am going to stop you abruptly and quickly and sternly and say you are never being selfish for putting your own needs into the equation. It's important that you take care of yourself. So please dismiss that thought from the caregiving role that you have and find the balance of your caregiver, your caregivee and the caregiver, and where their needs will each be met equally for equal success in this. Family members may feel that they owe their loved ones or that they are the only ones that can do this job. And it isn't why we had our children. I can't tell you that I ever thought, gee, I think I'll have a couple of kids so they can take care of me in my older years whenever I need it. It certainly was not at all in the picture. So I've got to let go of that. I want to make sure that families let go of that. You don't owe anyone. What you do want to give them is the best opportunity to thrive with the most professional and supportive mechanisms you can find. I'm going to tell you that you are not the only one that can do this job. You may love your caregivee better than I may love them, but I'm trained to bathe individuals. I'm trained to give medications. I'm trained to redirect demented clients from angry moments into pleasant moments. I am trained to do the job, and others can be trained to do the job. You, again, are not the only one that can do this. The only thing I will contend and give you is that I probably couldn't love your loved one the way you do. And that's a lovely thought. Continue loving them. I want to give you the break so that you can enjoy the quality time with them, not necessarily the quantity time, and making sure that others, if trained well, if communicated well too, can do the job of taking care of a loved one intermittently between your efforts. Sometimes we find that culturally, a family may feel that they need to just take care of their own. And so how do we break down that barrier? How do we share with them that that's a wonderful attribute, that they are taking care of their own, they are really stepping up to the plate, but to what are they losing potentially on the other side of that equation? And I often will tell my families, particularly when dementia and Alzheimer's or any of the cognitive issues are in place, I'm quite certain that 99.9% of my clients who are afflicted with some of those cognitive issues, if asked on a good day, would you like this disease to take your loved one down too, would absolutely say no. You know, I don't want this to impact them as it has impacted me. So on a good day, they would say, I'm so sorry. You take care of you and help take care of me. Thank you so much for what you're doing. This is can be a cultural challenge in many ways. I have a couple of sisters-in-law from different countries. And I know when they first met me and they were trying to understand what I did for a living, they could not understand that. Both came from countries where we don't hire people, we take care of them. They're our family members. So it took them a little while to get used to what I do for a living. Now they pretty much embrace it 24/7, bless their hearts. They've gotten on board. Sometimes our caregivers feel that they were given absolutely no choice or no voice in this, and they are forced to take on the role of a caregiver, and that can't feel good. Are you forced, or do you put yourself in that position? But by not asking for help or without voicing your concern, you'll stay in that role. I'm happy to be a caregiver. I just can't take on the full-time commitment that somehow I got anointed to at the onset of our loved one's decline. But you have to speak up and you have to be aware. And then again, this should say, Gail, as a caregiver, you're often reluctant to ask for help. I know better. I know that asking for help, giving me the little respite I might need, makes me a better caregiver in my role. It doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I'm actually kind of smart. I know my limits. I know what I can and can't do, and I'm going to maximize that. So please don't ever hesitate to ask for help. And if someone offers you help, take them up on it, book it, put it in a calendar. You know, at my house, we have a calendar and we book. When someone says to me, Gail, how can I help you out? I now write them in for a day, for 2 hours, so I can take a walk. I write them in and I schedule them right then and there. I take advantage of the offer. And should things go south and we can't manage that offer, we'll talk about it. But for the most part, even if it's for me to go take a shower or a nap, something along those lines, if we don't ask for it, we don't get it. And if others offer, let's learn to take them up on that offering. I think that's a growth point for all of us. Really an important element. It's one of my favorite slides. It's something we revisited not long ago, and I just want to confirm that everyone has a very clear understanding of these two different categories, these two different words, one an adjective, one a noun. Selfish. So look at the Webster Dictionary, definition of that. It's lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. I don't know a caregiver, an earnest caregiver, who meets that criteria one iota. What I do know is that by practicing self-care, that being the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and one's happiness, in particular during periods of stress, we are exercising self-care. That's not selfish, that's self-care, because we can then be a stronger support mechanism to the individual or the circumstance that we're charged with. So selfish doesn't resonate for me. Self-care, I hope resonates for all of us, and it should to some degree. So keep those in mind. Never a selfish soul here. Here's that reference to putting on your own oxygen mask first. Again, you take care of yourself. It is critical. The benefits aren't, I don't think they're even just twofold, but manyfold. Your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, your enhanced relationship with the one you love, the one that you're charged with as a caregiver. The benefits are multifold, if you ask me. So putting on your own oxygen mask first allows you to take care of yourself. And that's the key to successful caregiving, I believe, for what it's worth. So put that mask on as best you can. Couple of thoughts on how to manage some of the stress, because caregiving comes with a very significant load of stress. Some of it I think we produce and we put on ourselves. The remainder of it, I think is huge, and I think many of it exists because it just flat out exists. So you want to try to reduce some personal stress that you might be experiencing. Examine whether your role is essentially voluntary, or do you feel you just were really boxed into this corner? So how do you get yourself out of that corner? Again, you speak up, you ask for help, you align individuals to come in and do some of that helpful and that productive support mechanisms for you. You want to reduce that personal stress. If you are there for a hope of healing a damaged relationship, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but you've got to have good and solid understandings and expectations of what truly can be achieved. And I'll pick on my own family as an example. My mother, bless her heart, at the end of her life, pretty cognitive, had cancer, really pretty much riddled head to toe. And I had a brother, an older brother, who said, you know, I can move in with mom. I can take care of mom. And I remember, you know, chatting with him about how can we help you? You live in the area, you're not married. There are indicators that say this is a really wonderful thing for you to offer, but you know, how can we support you in this experience? And he was willing. We came up with a few ideas. I got some respite care for him, got someone to come in and bathe mom. But interestingly, he said to me at one point, he said, I think I kind of owe this to mom. I was a pretty crummy teenager. And I remember my mom and I giggling about, you know, she was very aware. She said, he's trying to make up for being that difficult teenager, isn't he? And I said, I think he might be, mom. I think he just might be. How's it working? And she said, well, some days it works. Some days I'm not sure. So, you know, again, set those realistic expectations. If you have someone with dementia or cognitive issues, you're probably not going to be able to necessarily remedy the entire situation. You may have windows, moments, snippets of being able to rectify, and at least you will feel good about that, but set realistic expectations of what you can actually achieve, either for yourself or for the one that you are supporting. I really believe that we prioritize and pick and choose our battles. There is no pajama police. So if your loved one that you're caring for refuses to get in pajamas, no one will knock on your door late at night and say, I beg your pardon, I think your caree is not in their pajamas. What's going on here? This is wrong. You want to pick and choose your battles and let go of the things that you cannot change, that are not worth the fight to change, and that don't cause you that additional stress that that's going to lend you to that burnout. So if it works for you, it works. As long as no one's harmed in the process, then let go of some of those issues that were previously a stickling point for you. Again, as we've said a number of times through this presentation, take care of your physical health. Go for your exams, go for your appropriate screenings, take your medications, get good nutrition. Don't let go of yourself, thinking that you're giving it all to the one that you love, so that at the close of their life, you're in a different physical status than you had been at the start of this journey. And again, identify and be at peace with that, with what you cannot change. There are some things that we just cannot alter. And we just need to find our peace with that and know that, again, we're safe, we're sound, we're doing the best job we can, we have support mechanisms, we have good communication, but there are certain things that we just cannot alter in the course of this caregiving experience. So give yourself a break, take yourself off the hook. I give you permission. A couple of things that may be helpful. Take that walk, get out in that, for some of this self-care, get out in that fresh air, get out in that vitamin D, get out in that peaceful, quiet moment. It may be just that you needed a walk to the end of the block just to clear the head. There's no voice coming at you. You hear the birds, etc. This is when you might ask a family member or friend to come and sit with a loved one, so you could step outside and take that time away, etc. Maybe you go out to dinner. Maybe you actually schedule something special as a treatment, a spa treatment, nails, toes, face. Our guys, individuals who have different interests, maybe you go out and enjoy an hour talking with other gentlemen, etc. Maybe you buy yourself something special. Bottom line is, if it boosts and buoys your emotional well-being, it's worth it and you deserve it. So please don't think, again, this is self-care. This is not selfish. It's not as if you're walking out and leaving your charge completely unattended when previously they've been fully attended. That we don't suggest, but scheduling some coverage, getting out there and doing some of the things that help you will help your loved one in the long run. You may want to attend a support group. I know a good many of our support groups are still online. I think personally there's nothing better than in person in some of these experiences that we have. But as an alternative, just again, getting a familiarity with the fact, with the idea that you're not alone, that there are others in your same boat. They too are struggling. I always find it easier to understand that, oh, that happened to you too? Oh, I thought it was just me. Oh, I'm so glad to hear it's you as well. There can be good tools to be learned, information to share. So support groups, and I think so many of us often say, well, I don't do support groups, that's for anybody else. I think you'll find that there's a role for everybody in every support group, as it might be. You don't have to lead the group, you don't have to share, you can even just go and listen. That may be as healthy as anything for certain individuals. And again, ask for and accept some help. There are informal and formal resources available. We often refer to informal help mechanisms being those friends, those church members, those neighbors who, so casually say to you, oh, well, if you ever need anything, I'll help you. Versus, and you may want to book them for something and make them feel that their help was acknowledged and it was appreciated and actually utilized. I do think people are sitting in the ready waiting to see how they might help. If that angle doesn't really present you with the mechanisms you need to really get the respite that you need in this experience, then you would want to turn to formal resources such as caregiving agencies. This is their job. This is what they're trained for. This is what they do professionally. So you may want to have a nice combination of informal and formal so that you will have all your bases covered. Better to have bases covered and not be in crisis, and to keep your personal sense of well-being, having all of this resource lined up for you before any sort of crisis may hit. You can see the little asterisk there. COVID has created definitely some challenges to some of these self-care practices. I love the idea that creativity is needed now more than ever. I think that's what we charge ourselves with as care managers, is to be as creative as possible. All of these attempts can be altered and adjusted according to what circumstances each and every individual faces. COVID was the general crisis that we all experienced. Now, on top of that, when we're caring for a loved one, we have the added crisis of the current situation they're in. So best to be prepared and utilize some of these support systems. Try a new approach in your role as a caregiver. Again, develop some strategies to promote that self-care. You want to focus on the physical. We've talked about the body, the emotional, the heart and soul. How are you feeling about this experience you're having? The psychological, are you in the best mindset that you can be in? I think that's a critical element. The better slept I am, the better fed I am, the better exercised I am, the better my mind is, clearer I am, and the better I'm able to respond to my charge. Where's your spirituality at? Not everybody needs to maybe practice of the same God, but do you have, a focus that gets you through these issues? Do you have something that is a higher power that works for you? Everybody's individual in that approach, and I would encourage you to make that a part of your self-care strategy. And then where's the socialization? No man is an island is so well put. And I think one of the things we experienced with COVID this past year is such an awareness of the isolation and the lack of social outlet that we had, and what impact that had on all of us, and everybody to different degrees. So making sure that you have a social network doesn't mean that every day you're 5 hours on the phone or you walk away from your charge, but do you have some periodic social support from others? And do you provide that to others? It feels good to give as well as to receive. So a critical and valuable juncture to look at in regards to your self-care. Do you have your stress relief? What might that stress relief be? For me, I'll be honest, is walking the dogs. They don't talk back. They go anywhere I want them to go. They think all my ideas are just stellar. versus my caregivee who has a mind of her own and tends to tell me of that, and makes some good points. I'll tell you that, certainly. But where is your stress relief? Nutrition and hydration, so important. As we are charged with hydrating our care-e, we should be hydrating ourselves as well. We are a body made mostly of fluid, so we've got to replenish that all the time. And as much as we sing that praise and speak to that effort with our care, with the caregiving we do, we must do that as well for ourselves. We are as important as anyone. Good sleep, good connection, again, with others, some of that physical activity. I think it's, again, really good to spread that kindness. As someone does a kindness to you, how do you repay that in kind? Do you pay that forward? Do you, revel in those types of things? I think one good kindness can go a long way in our overall general feeling of well-being. And then that circumstance of spirituality, whatever resonates for you is what's important to you. So again, there's not a cookie cutter for that, but really important that we all have some sense of where our spirituality lies, and are we tending to that in our self-care? All of these are critical for our best well-being, as it might be. So know when to say when, and this is so hard. Mostly this comes from, when do I say I can't do this anymore? When do I say I need professional caregiving support? When do I place someone? When do I say I can't do this anymore? There is no definitive right or wrong answer to this, but I would hearken to you that there are some indicators, and then there is certainly one line. There's indicators that will tell you or lead you to the idea of getting additional help or knowing when you are at your limit. The one thing you don't want to do or say is make promises you can't fulfill. So I will often say to family members, rather than say, Mom, I'll never abandon you, or Mom, I'll never put you in a facility, or Mom, I'll never leave you. How about, Mom, at every turn, you and I together will make the best decisions we can make for your well-being at the time. And again, with cognitive issues, that may be a mouthful, but really that's your best bet. Not to over promise and under deliver is a key element. But truly, some of the indicators will step back and speak specifically to the idea that your loved one would no longer be safe. If they are exiting day in and day out, and you can't keep up with them, if they are so active and so engaged, and they are into everything, and you can't lock things up as quickly as possible, if they are falling out of bed, falling when they're standing, sitting, breathing, when is it that your loved one is no longer safe in your hands? There's no shame in that. I think there's actually honor in that, in knowing this is bigger than me, and I can only do what I can do. You might want to know when to say when your loved one could harm themselves or others. They could be a threat to others or to themselves. They're not safe. And there are individuals who are settled and able and trained to come in and take over at that point. When you go to a facility, which again, I think nobody goes into the end zone and the facility spikes the ball and says, oh, yay, Mom's moving today into a facility, I'm going to abandon her. But let's be honest, they have trained caregivers. They leave their shift after 8 hours. You may not have left your shift after 8 hours. They have fresh faces, they get their sleep, they come back in and they tackle whatever they need to tackle. So again, you want no harm done to anyone in this experience. When your own health and your own safety are at risk, and that may be the time when you say, enough's enough and I have to move. We have to make some changes. This serves no one in this equation. And of course, when the stress of caregiving is impacting your ability to provide the best care that is possibly able for someone, then it may be time to say, gosh, I just can't do this. I can love them top to bottom, but I'm not sure I can move them properly. I can change them properly. I can redirect them properly. I can feed them properly, but I can sure come in there and love them properly. So let's get the professionals engaged as best we can when it's time. And there is no shame in there being time. If you can make it throughout the duration, well done you. But if anything is compromised, it's time to look at alternatives. Remember, you're not alone. You can tell because you have participants in this call. You are never alone, but you have to communicate. You have to speak up. You have to say, I need help. I need self-care. It is not selfish. I need rest. I need nutrition. I need hydration. I need rejuvenation. How can I get some help? So please know that you're not alone and that you are a rock star for just even taking the time today to try to absorb some of this and realize that caregiving is a pretty darn big job with a huge, huge price tag in many, many ways, emotionally, physically, fiscally, and it fills the bucket for a lot of individuals, but it's challenging to say the least.